Today on Beardo and Weirdo, we're being joined by Dee Snider, a genuine mentor to me in my life. He updates us on his health, shares some incredibly funny stories, and I go a little too hard in telling him how much he means to me.
And was the meth snorting, Jack Daniels drinking, bass playing Motörhead, Mr. Lemmy, an angel sent from above?
That is a real story that will make you wonder.
I'm convinced. Dee Snider for president.
Let's do it. Beardo and Weirdo, Chris Kale and me, Craig Gass, are on tour. Go to getgas.com. I've got dates coming up in Baltimore, Detroit, Honolulu, the Bay Area, San Francisco. Chris Kale is going on tour with Five Finger Death Punch. You can get VIP packages at where?
ChrisKale.com, and you can pick up all those tickets for the Five Finger Death Punch tour at fivefingerdeathpunch.com.
Yeah.
See ya.
Ladies and gentlemen, a man who needs no introduction, but I have to say that this is, without question, the most stellar human being I've ever met in my life. If you love a person with integrity, this is your guy. I've also felt like he was a father figure to me. There's two people in my life who I felt like were father figures to me, whether it was intentional or not. I just admired them so much that I thought, I want to walk like them. I want to be like them. George Carlin and Dee Snider, which actually reminds me of something kind of insulting that Dee said to me about George Carlin, because I said, he goes, hey, I met George Carlin and turns out he does know you. And I go, the fuck, did you think I was lying this whole time? Ladies and gentlemen, the great Dee Snider joins us. And let's just say off the top, you're fine. Your health is fine, right?
Well, let's address the elephant in the room. Why am I so red? Am I that red on your? Because I'm like screaming red, like I've got a fever or something. I don't know why.
I assumed you're just preparing for a new role of playing a demon in a new upcoming, because Dee's been so involved in film and that you're just.
My blood pressure is so high that I'm just like about to explode. I don't know.
That's the first thing I thought of.
So red.
Yeah, because I know when my blood pressure is going up, it's I get that red face. So yeah, you got some water around there, Dee?
I've got it under control.
Perfect.
It's a weird, I'm. This has been a very weird time for me.
And
to
why
say
is that?
The least.
Because of all the news going on with the reunion having to stop with you and.
Yeah, I mean, it's, we can get funny later. We'll just So first of all, becoming face to face with mortality. I mean, and as the doctor said to me, dude, you're great, amazing for a 71-year-old, but you can't do that anymore. You're done. Your body parts are worn out and you got nothing left. And the funniest thing when the surgeon looked at my x-ray says, do you jump around much? Yeah, that's kind of what I do. He goes, yeah, well, you're done. And so that was the first one. And then when I was going to get a hip replacement and hoping that would be enough to change things, on that level, and I could still keep playing. Then I was told that I had hypertension and heart issues that day-to-day living and handling and dealing with it. My dad's 95 and I'll be going for a long time. But if I'm going to go up there and burn rubber on stage and just, and just use it up, so to speak, I had to decide whether or not to stop that. And my family literally had to sit down with me and pretty much beg me to stop.
No shit.
And facing my kids and, and them just, they were like, why are you doing this? What do you got to prove? You don't, it's not a financial thing for you. You've got everything that you ever dreamed of, everything you wanted. It's pure ego. It's basically, and also, I blame Bruce Dickinson. I'm blaming Bruce Dickinson because when I found out that my hip was shot, I get a call from Bruce. I haven't spoken to him since the Power Slaves tour.
Oh my God.
And he reaches out to say, hey, I'm not going to do an accent or anything, but he said, D, he said, I've had it done twice. He goes, and I'm back in action.
Oh, what an
And
asshole.
I said, you're back in action? He goes, now, mind you, I think Bruce is 10 years younger than me. I said, you're back in action? He says, yeah, man, I'm thrusting, I'm parrying. I said, whoa, what about the band? Oh, yeah, the band too. But I'm fencing, man. All he cared about was that he was still thrusting and parrying. And but when I heard him say, okay, you know, like back in action 100%, I was like, all right, I could do this. And that's when I was going for the surgery that I found out that I had a heart issue that I did not know about. And that was when they pulled the rug out from under me.
Yeah.
And then I still, like an asshole, so they got the hip, it was better. I'm like, you know what? I'm going out there, I want to test it out. Lita Ford had asked me to do a few songs with her, like I used to do with Brett and stuff. So I go up there stage and I walk out on stage and I'm like, damn, this thing feels good. I'm thrusting and I'm parrying. Bounce, bounce, bounce. Knee goes.
Oh my.
No.
3 bounces, knee goes. And I'm like, whoa, my son of a bitch. And I'm just hearing that surgeon going, you're done.
Yeah.
You're done. And, you know, so I got the knee fixed and I was like, all right, am I going to keep playing this game? You know, like I go out there and then I break something else, or I tear something else, or I, you know, injure something else, or am I going to, you know, enjoy my life? And like I said, day to day, I'm living my best life without a doubt. Built a family compound in North Carolina.
Yep.
Got all my kids, my wife, my grandkids, everybody here.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
I'm living a good life. I'm directing my first movie in a couple of months.
Yep.
You know, I'm writing, I'm doing other things. I'm still doing my radio show. You know, I mean, 29 years I've been doing my syndicated radio show, House of Hair. So, I mean, it's not that I'm lacking any outlet or creativity or attention. You know, you know, for my ego, do I really need to get up there on stage and show, you know, I could do it one more time. And here's the last thing I'm going to say about this. Unless you guys ask me another question, then I'll say that.
Yeah.
When Twisted Sister retired in 2016, it was 10 years ago. I had a 29-inch waist. I weighed 175 pounds. I had an 8-pack. Pull up the pictures, folks. Pull up the pictures.
Alex.
I'm ripped to shreds. At 61 years old, I am ripped to shreds. And I am performing at my peak. And it was a friend of mine said, do you really want to go back 10 years later? You know you can't take your shirt off. You know you ain't got no 29-inch waist. That ship sailed a few inches ago. He goes, you know, and so he goes, and you know, you can't possibly compare to that. You went out on a high note. You were 61. You said, goodbye, everybody. And now you're going to come back 10 years later and suck? And I may not suck, but that was besides the health issues. Even if I go out there, I'm 10 years older. I'm 10 years more worn out. And speaking of George Carlin, am I pointing to the right guy?
Yeah.
Speaking of George Carlin, I'm paraphrasing, but I've always quoted George had a line and said, we're not supposed to cross the finish line. I'm paraphrasing here. In perfect condition, untouched, unscathed, unmarked. We're supposed to slide into home, beaten, battered, and bruised because we did something.
Absolutely.
That was something about you that I remembered. There's so many stories you've told me that I remember that I want to bring up. And one of those stories, and by the way, I have forgotten entire relationships I've been in, but I remember stories that Dee has told me. And one of them was, and I love that I had this in common with him. He said, sometimes when I hear a great quote, I write it down. And I go, I do that too.
Same.
You had a question, Chris?
Yeah. As a 51-year-old who was nowhere near ready to take his shirt off on stage, you said that you found out about the heart condition when you went in for the surgery. Looking back now, were there any signs that you didn't see that would have let you know before going into that surgery that you were dealing with a heart issue?
I don't say I was in denial because I didn't know what I was experiencing, but it started quite a while ago. So my wife inherited her father's real estate empire.
Okay.
And we and I had to take over.
Mhm.
And while I'm smart, and I'm capable, I knew nothing about it, and got dropped into these 6-building daycare centers and Tractor Supply locations and all this stuff with no past experience. And he had dementia for the last 2 years before we took over.
Oh,
So
boy.
it was a mess. So that was the first time I started feeling like my heart was in my throat.
Right, the palpitations type stuff.
And where I didn't know what it was, but it's that sustained stress
Oh.
that causes damage. We all have stress day to day. Things happen, but it's when that stress doesn't let up, And so that was the first one. Then we started building this compound, and it was a massive undertaking. The expenses were huge, and we're in litigations with contractors and things like that, and just another level up. So I just constantly had this feeling like I was being choked out by my own heart.
Mhm.
And I just ignored it. Said, whatever, it's just a thing, but when I went in there and they told me, dude, we can't even give you the surgery. We got to get this thing under control because you could die on the table.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa. I mean, it was huge.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a reality check.
That's so crazy to me for a guy who I feel like lived in tension. I mean, this is a guy who, oh my God, I am so grateful for my relationship with this man because he let me work on his radio show, a very popular morning show in Hartford, Connecticut. I remember, to give you an idea of radio ratings, when Howard Stern was doing terrestrial radio and he called himself the king of all media, and he was crushing in radio ratings in New York, he had a 6 share of the New York City radio audience, meaning that 6% of all the radios in New York were listening to Howard Stern. And he was the king of all media from having a 6 share. In Hartford, where Howard had a 13 share of the market. Oh, wait, you know what? I want to say Howard had a 16 share of the market in Hartford. Dee also had a 13 share in that market.
Oh, yeah.
And they were 2 giants
Couple
in
of titans.
Hartford. And when I would come in to write stuff for the show, it would be right at the end of a broadcast day. Sometimes I would sit in with him. Sometimes I'd come in just to write stuff. And then when we'd get done, he goes, all right, well, that's it. And I'd go, yeah, I guess that's it. So what was Lemmy like?
Oh, yeah.
And he'd go, oh, let me
Get
tell
all
you.
the stories.
And
Nice.
he started telling me. In fact, I'm remembering now. We're going to bounce around a lot, Dee, but
That's fine, man. By the way, Craig, you're one of my favorite people, and not because of all the nice things you say about me, but just, we hit it off the minute we met each other, and you did. They said the guy who does Sam Kinison from Hell was that in Seattle?
Seattle, at the Ballard Firehouse, the first time I met you was in Seattle.
Yeah, and I go, what? And he goes, yeah, he's here. And I said, all right, bring him in. And I said, okay, go. And he ow.
Yeah.
He starts going, and I've got, holy crap, it's you, and we sort of started being friends. And then I ran into you, Jones Beach.
And that is when I told, now, all right, listen, I told Chris, Dee did something that shed some light on something I never realized. I would find that my impressions of people made them uncomfortable. I didn't understand it. I remember Alec Baldwin, when I worked on the TV show Las Vegas, saying to me, he said, do you ever do the impressions for the people? Do you ever say, hi, I do an impression of you. Would you like to hear it? And I said, yeah, I do. But you know what happens is they feel weird when I do it to them. And he goes, you know why? It's because you take a part of their soul. And I go, what the fuck? What does that mean? But
I get it, Craig. I worked with you for a while.
But Dee is the only person on planet Earth who has done an impression of me, and it made people laugh, and it bothered me because only because I was like, I don't get it. I don't get, and it bothered me that everybody was laughing. And it's the same thing, I think, as hearing your voice for the first time, where you go, that's not what I sound like. But Dee told me, I remember him telling me Lemmy stories, and there was a line that he said that I didn't get at the time. He said, when I first met Lemmy, I didn't speak Lemmy at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And I go, okay. And I didn't understand what that meant. And I thought, but I thought you guys were friends. What does that mean? He goes, I didn't quite understand the guy. And then years and years later, after I did a tour with Alice in Chains, I started going to Alice in Chains shows because I can get in for free to the shows and I can hang out. And they did a show in LA, Lemmy's backstage. And someone gave me a brief introduction. It didn't go anywhere. But as the evening went on, every time I passed Lemmy's table, he'd go, hey, and I'd go, hey, what's going on, man? And he'd say, have a seat. And I sit down and he goes, how do you get a dead baby to come on some moment? And I go, I don't know how. And he goes, you gotta find Indian and I'm on the and I went, and he goes, how many dead babies does it take to find them? I don't know how many. 5, because you get in and you go on to know. I only recognized the words dead baby in the setup of every joke, and I couldn't make out what the rest of it was. And I understood for the first time, Dee used to tell me I don't speak Lemmy.
Yeah, I totally get that. Being in a band with Zoltan Bathory from Hungary and Andy James with a heavy British accent. There's times when I'm listening to both those going, please, AI, create closed captions right now for me so I can understand what the hell they're talking about. And I've been in a band with them forever.
Hey, Google Translate don't work on that?
And the wonderful thing about Dee is him telling me, and integrity. I'll tell you a couple of moments as this conversation goes on about integrity. One of the things about Dee, I will always remember, he was that kid who, if I remember correctly, your dad caught you drinking a beer, and then he made you go into a room and drink an entire case of beer. Is that right?
That's not me. That's not me.
Or was it cigarettes?
No, I mean, no. My dad was bizarre. You know, a vet, cop, just a tough guy, But I remember on my 13th birthday, he was like, come on, you and me, we're going to go out see a movie and, for your 13th birthday. I'm like, oh, graduate. Okay, great. So, and my dad was my hero, but it was a weird worship because I was afraid of him, as well as worshipped him. So after the movie, we're driving home. He goes, you want a drink? I'm 13. No. He goes, you want to smoke? I said, no. He goes, all right, but if you do, just don't let your mother see it.
That really?
And that was parenting from my father. You're 13, you can drink, you can smoke, but don't let your mother see it.
But I know that you've never drank, or that you were never a drinker, you're never a drug guy, you never smoked. Why do you think you got through that entire music industry run for as long as you've been in it and never felt any compelling part of it to drink or smoke?
I've been fortunate to have had really bad experiences. I mean, massively bad experiences. I don't gamble because with only $20 of food money, this is the 70s. That was like the money for the week for me and Suzette. I got sucked into a 3-card Monte game on a street corner in Times Square.
Ooh, I almost sucked in.
I got sucked in. They see you coming from the back of the crowd.
Oh yeah.
And I moved in and laid my last 20 down.
Yep.
And they got me.
Yep.
And that was our food money for the week. Ooh. And I had to borrow money to whatever, and it was just bad. I said, never gamble again. And I never gamble again, except in my career. Drinking, based on my father's, you're 13, you can drink. I was at a party and I said, okay, I'm going to drink. And I drank. I drank until I was paralyzed on the floor, vomiting on myself. And people, I just remember, they're laughing at you. They're laughing at you. I remember everybody just standing around and just laughing their ass off. And that little voice, the sober voice that's inside the drunk body, that goes, good Lord, if you ever let me walk again, I swear off demon alcohol. But at 13, it was such a bad experience. At 13, when I sobered up, I said, you couldn't just have one beer.
Whoa.
You couldn't just have one shot. You kept going until you were literally comatose. You cannot drink and you cannot control yourself. I'm so obsessive with things. And that was it. So I had a very, very bad experience at 13, and I stuck to my word. I said, no, I will not.
I love that you discovered that.
Going to Lemmy, Lemmy, the first time I meet him, he sees, it's a longer story, but he became a big Twisted fan. It was amazing story. But he calls me into a bathroom and he lays out 2 lines of cocaine. And he's a hero. And that's a gift. That's a generous gift. I realize that coke is expensive.
Absolutely.
And I said, what am I going to do? I said, Lemmy, I don't get high. And Lemmy looked at me for a second and says, okay, more for me. And he did both lines in one pass. And when we went to his memorial service, they had shots of Jack Daniels all over the table out there. And my wife and I both don't drink. And she said, should we have a shot of Jack Lemmy? It's his memorial. I said, no. I said, we understand each other.
Yeah.
More, if I don't drink, it's more for Lemmy.
Yeah.
And so we hung out and he got high and he drank and I never shared or imbibed. And we were great friends. I'm honored to say I've got a Lemmy bullet, which I never expected to get. Even when I heard about them, you never presume that something so precious.
Can you explain that to the audience, what the Lemmy bullet is?
So Lemmy had his ashes put into bullets that each have a little bit of his ashes in, and it says Lemmy on them, and he sent them to his friends.
Yeah.
And like I said, I heard about it and would not even presume. That is such a precious gift. I would not presume. And then one day there was special delivery at the front door and a little box, and I was like, oh my God. And I opened it, and there's a Lemmy bullet in there. And, I don't have to tell you guys how much I treasure that and how honored I am to have it. But, that even without the drugs, without the alcohol, without sharing that part of Lemmy's life, we still were great friends.
Chris, what was your question you were going to ask about?
I was going to say, you noticed at 13, you realized that you had that obsession and were able to take that away from putting it into drugs and alcohol. I'm assuming, much like myself, being this obsessed person, you then turned that into the pursuit of being in Twisted Sister, being Dee Snider, going into radio. So you were able to channel all that obsession into a positive.
That and coffee.
And coffee, yes.
So I was actually literally sat down by Twisted Sister and told they were going to fire me if I didn't cut back on the caffeine. Now, I'm sitting there, it's 11 in the morning. One guy is leaving for an AA meeting as soon as we're done. 2 other guys have got drinks in their hand. Another guy has white powder underneath his nose. And I'm like, let me get this straight. My coffee drinking is getting in the way of your alcohol and drug consumption.
This reminds me.
And they were like, dude, you're driving us insane.
Yeah.
You're driving us insane. At my peak, the Dave Grohl more pots, 3 full pots a day.
Woo.
Morning, a full pot of coffee. Midday, a full pot of coffee. Before bed, a full pot of coffee. So that said, I would nod out with the cup in my hand and not spill a drop. And it'd be like, and 2 back then with Dunkin' Donuts, big ones. I would go down for 2 the giant coffees, and I would drink those, and that was a daily consumption for a long time. So yeah, I did not do drugs or alcohol. But man, I was caffeinated. And Eddie used to sit there with his watch, timing it, because he'd see me drinking coffee, and and I'd see him like this, and he knew, like, within 20 minutes, he goes, oh, there he goes. Yeah.
It's funny because coming down here to talk to Dee today, I got a quad shot because I was like, I'm talking to Dee. I got to get jacked up for this because I know what I'm about to walk into.
I've still got a full thing of coffee in the car right now, and I have a Monster in my hand right now. And I'm going to sleep great tonight, too.
And the story about Dee getting, having surrounded by guys who have drug and alcohol problems, telling him that he's an issue, reminds me of, I know on the Howard Stern show, there was a guy who worked on the show named Casey Armstrong who had a really bad gambling problem, and they did an intervention that included Artie Lang, who was strung out on heroin and hadn't showered in a few days, and Artie Lang is in the intervention going, Casey, you're a mess. Which is hilarious. But the Lemmy story I wanted to bring up that you told me was years later, after the success of Twisted Sister, you're in London, and you told me a story about being with Lemmy. You met up with him at a bar, and Lemmy engaged.
Frank's Funny Farm. That was That was like the Rainbow.
Oh, is that right?
In London. It was called Frank's Funny Farm back then. Yeah.
And and the way I remember the story is that throughout the hang that you had with Lemmy, people would look at him and nod, and he'd go, excuse me for 1 second. And he'd go in the bathroom to go do a deal and then come out. Do I remember that correctly?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I realized that there's levels of rock stardom.
Yeah.
And the lower echelons deal drugs to the upper.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, I remember Jeff Beck walking in.
No
and
shit.
Lemmy and I were, of course, Lemmy, just like at the Rainbow, where he's got his machine that he plays.
Yeah.
Back then, he had the same deal at the Funny Farm with a different machine, but he'd come in, they give him a bag of coins, he'd put it on the game, and we'd stand there and he'd play and play. We would just talk and he'd play and play and play. And then Beck walked in, and Beck, did a little nod to Lemmy. Lemmy gives a little nod, and he goes, excuse me a second. And he went off and he told him some drugs.
I'm realizing we kind of jumped off from the headline at the very beginning about Dee's health. I did want to ask and circle back. Do you think the guys in the band, knowing now that you can't do this and you've essentially stopped it from moving forward because you're the key component, do you think they're going to try to move forward without you?
I hope so.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I hope so. I don't know why when I left in 1987, they did not get another singer. I mean, it's done all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and done sometimes not successfully, sometimes successfully, sometimes mixed bag like Van Halen. You get one replacement singer who just crushes it, Sammy.
Yep.
And then you get Gary, who's a great singer, by the way, but it didn't work. You get Richie Blackmore, who changed 3 singers in Deep Purple and had hits with all 3 singers.
Great
then
point.
went to Rainbow, changed those singers 3 times, had hits with all of them. So some bands, do it very successfully. Others, Skid Row, they have not had that success like they had with Sebastian, but they don't care for Sebastian, and they are rockers. And Skid Row continues to play on, and they've been through, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 singers now, and Sebastian's screaming for a reunion, and they're going, not in this lifetime, and they keep playing. I respect that. I never understood why the band just stopped performing until I came back. Then they performed again, and it's always been, if Dee leaves, then we don't play anymore. I mean, people say, seriously, Dee, you don't know why. I understand. I'm a unique thing, but that there are other people there who can. I believe there's got to be somebody out there who can kick ass.
Do you have anybody in mind that you would recommend to take that role?
Just gonna ask.
All right, okay, back it up. So cut back to we're still reunited. It's like 2014, something like that, and we realized we've been together now like 12 years, and we only do like 20 shows a year, and they're really big money shows, and they're big they're headlining festivals, whatever. And we realized that if somebody we got sick or had a problem at home and they couldn't do a show, it would be a great loss since it was one of 20 shows for the year. So they said, listen, let's all find a standing guy who will do the job in case we can't make a show. That was the plan. And Mendoza's bass tech, Russ Pizzuto, who played with me with my solo stuff, and he was actually going to be the bass player for the Twisted reunion. He actually filled in for Mark one time. JJ, Eddie each had somebody, and AJ picked Mike Portnoy.
Before he actually joined the band, AJ picked him.
Before he died.
Wow.
He picked him as a stand-in.
Oh my!
Right.
6 months later, AJ dies.
Wow.
And now it was like he had picked his replacement.
Right.
Wow.
And by the way, side story, this is not a well-known story, but Bon Scott picked Brian Johnson. But I'll get into that in a minute. So when it came to me, I was trying to get someone to replace me, and nobody would take the job. And I called him Sebastian Bach. I was like, dude, will you be the fill? And he goes, no way. I'm like, what do you mean, no way?
Dude,
that's a thankless job. No, I'm not standing in for you. Never. I'm like, you're SMF number 2. That's what we call it. SMF number 1, SMF number 2. You're my student. You studied me. You're a great singer. You could do it. People will love it. No way. So him, Mike Monroe from Anna Rocks.
Oh yeah.
No way. We're not standing in for Dee Snider. Which is very flattering.
Absolutely.
But I wish they would.
Yeah.
I wish they would. I would not. And I hear rumors that the band is actually trying to find someone. And I say, God bless them.
And
You're nodding yes. What did that nod yes to? I caught you.
Yeah. Craig even pointed at me. He's like, yep, he knows something.
I do know, and I'm sure D also, I mean, he's saying he's heard rumors, but I do know that they're working on, I have heard that they're working on somebody who may or may not have already been mentioned in this conversation. So
yeah, I know there's been rehearsals with him, and he hasn't reached out to me. I think he knows he has my blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I would never begrudge anybody, continuing to rock, I mean, I never imagined a time. But you talk about integrity, that's another thing, I mouth off, in case you don't know.
Yeah.
And there are people out there in the online universe, whatever that is over there. There are people that said, ha, this is karma. These talk shit about other artists who stay beyond their expiration date, and now he is expired. You go, yeah, but at least but then they go, but he is actually walking away.
Right.
Yeah, I was saying because the doctor said, look, if you can just go up there and stand there, you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Frankie Valli.
I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I could not do that if I wanted to, and just the idea of it just breaks my heart. The idea of me there's only one way to rock, baby. It's flat out. Throw down.
Again.
Throw down, and I got to throw down. If I'm just going to stand there like Willie Nelson, I'm out.
Yeah.
Again,
I'm out.
Integrity. He knows he could take a big check for doing it, and he won't take the big check and do what he has to do physically to make that happen. He won't take the check for it. He's also, for years, would always tell me how proud, well, I don't even know if he even brought up, Suzette fell in love with him when he was a self-described ugly young man. And he's like, you know what? She cared. Nobody would give me the time of day back then, women, but she did. I'm not leaving her. And they've been together for, I think, almost 50 years now.
50 years since I met her in April.
April.
Insane.
The integrity of, before we had these discussions about your band, Five Finger Death Punch, pointing out, hey, stop touching the women in the audience, that are trying to crowd surf. Dee had those stories about where he would say, he'd stop a show and say, and call out men for shitty behavior.
Dude, you guys do that? Thank.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's great.
All the time.
And you should. And, and I mean, everybody should feel safe in our audiences.
Absolutely. Yep.
So I'm on stage. It is out in Arizona, daytime show. So, I could see the crowd real good. And there was this girl up on this guy's shoulders. And, when she's up on his shoulders and rocking out, the place is crowded, we're rocking out. And all of a sudden I see a hand come up and grab her breast and then pull away. And then she sort of swats it down from the other side. Another hand comes up and grabs her breast and it goes down. And then all of a sudden, all these hands come up and they drag her down into the crowd off the guy's shoulders. And I see the commotion going on and I stop the band. I stop the show. I said, right there's a girl who's just been pulled into the crowd. She's being assaulted. Get her out of there. And but you can't, I'm not going to mention names. What's this? Fred from Limp Bizkit.
Yeah.
You can't just ignore what's going on in the audience.
Right.
And people are being injured and hurt. And, I mean, you have a responsibility. I'm proud of you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Ivan is a huge fan of you and really looks up to you. So knowing that you did that stuff and Ivan does that on stage as well. I mean, there's been many times that we'll see security getting a little rough with fans coming over the railing or whatever. And Ivan will stop the show and be like, hey, this is our family. Treat them like you would your son or daughter out there. And, they've paid the money to get out there. Those people are there to protect. So protect, don't manhandle. And that's one that we've always had to stop a few times.
The show that made it into an episode of ours was a show that I went to. They had a big Rock on the Range festival that Five Finger Death Punch was headlining one night. Then there was a side stage outside of the stadium for stand-up comedy that I was performing at with Andrew Dice Clay and Mark Norman and a couple other people. And I was watching the Five Finger Death Punch show. I didn't even see this happening, but in between songs, your singer, Ivan, said, I'm just going to say this once.
Yep.
If I see one more guy trying to touch a girl that's crowd surfing, I am personally coming out there to beat the fuck out of you.
Yeah.
And the crowd went nuts. And it was a one-time message like, hey man, fucking behave.
Yeah.
And the response from the audience was, yeah,
absolutely,
fucking behave.
And not for nothing, like he's also got Zoltan Bathory, who's a black belt in jiu-jitsu and judo, and me, who practices Muay Thai. So if Ivan tells you to stop doing something in the crowd, probably a good idea to go ahead and stop.
And one of the best.
You know what? That is, first of all, Ivan, he sends me video messages.
Oh yeah.
Well, we exchange, we communicate from time to time, and you know, and it's great to hear, because we need more of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, also great to hear the band has his back, because when I was writing my memoirs and I was writing about all the times I dove off the stage and got in this fight and invented stage diving at one point. Well, there was no such thing as stage diving, but it didn't work well because the crowd parted like the Red Sea.
Yeah, I remember these stories.
You're a big dude.
But and I hit the ground and we had to cancel a bunch of shows. I bruised the bone in my leg. Anyway, but I realized in writing the book, I said, wait a minute. No one ever came off the stage to help me. I was always out in the crowd swinging fists, and they just they would vamp.
Yeah.
And wait till I climb back out of the crowd, and then under the, you know, we'd be back into it. But yeah, man, it was nice to hear that you guys have Ivan's back.
One of my favorite stories that Dee told me was early nightclub days with Twisted Sister. I remember him saying that there were some bikers in the crowd, and I can't remember what the exchange was, but they were getting shitty with him. And Dee goes, you know what? Fuck it. And he sent out a warning, and the problem continued. And he said, I'm coming out there, mother. And he jumped, and the whole crowd just cleared out. And he goes, and I'm a grown man in women's clothing standing in a big open space facing a few bikers. And now the crowd's like, what are you going to do now? And I just thought, his story.
Oh, man. Oh. Yeah. And I just remember, like, I figured, again, this is sort of, you'll have Ivan's back. I figured my peeps would be there for me.
The audience.
My peeps were making an arena of crude arena with their arms pushing me to give us room to fight. And I'm in there in 6-inch red spike heels. I'm going, oh, son of a bitch.
Yeah, you're another story about integrity. It's a well-documented story that Dee was one of the few to step up at a time when when the government was trying to censor music and starting with the PMRC. Dee told me something that I had never heard publicly, and he told me privately, I don't know if you ever talked about this in interviews, that when you went to testify, I think it was a Senate hearing, that they asked for your notes, essentially a cheat sheet, didn't they? Am I remembering that correctly?
They wanted to see my speech before I gave it.
Right.
Censoring even that.
And did they claim that was standard? They said...
Yeah, standard.
Yeah.
And they said standard, and I said, all right, you show me yours, I'll show you mine.
There we go.
Ooh.
And they said, well, that's not how we do it. And they said, don't worry about it. Because they really thought I was going to be a complete idiot, an incomplete idiot. And they were not ready for me. But yeah, it's just like they want to have the information they were going to be debating before you presented it, so they could be prepared to argue back. But I didn't give it to them.
That was such a huge moment. Did you ever consider running for office with that sort of experience?
You know what? So many people ask me about that, and and what I could tell you is, I'm too honorable a person to be a politician.
Yep.
That integrity, they don't have that.
100%.
It was one of the great disappointments of my life, is sitting there and debating these people and realizing, and I still had a little bit, I'm a kid born in the 50s. So even though we had Watergate and things like that, it's still this idea that somehow these were better people trying to do good, working for the greater good. And I sat there and realized they were just purely personal agenda driven. And they were not interested in the people of the greater good. They're only interested in keeping their phony baloney jobs.
Absolutely.
As Mel Brooks once said.
Excuse me, are you going to tell me you're a big fan of my music as well?
No, I'm not. I'm not a fan of your
sorry,
music.
Mr. Gore.
I'm aware that Frank Zappa and John Denver cover quite a spectrum, and I do enjoy them both. I am not, however, a fan of Twisted Sister, and I will readily say that. Mr. Snider, what is the name of your fan club?
The fan club is called the SMF Friends of Twisted Sister.
And what does SMF stand for when it's spelled out?
It stands for the Sick Motherfucking Friends of Twisted Sister.
Is this also a Christian group?
I don't believe that profanity has anything to do with Christianity. Thank you.
And and it was really disheartening. And I remember walking out. So I testify, I get up, I exit, and a reporter is there. They were all over the place. A reporter sticks a mic in my face and says, "Dee, how do you feel?" And without even thinking, I said, "Dirty."
Oh,
Wow.
And that was the first word that popped out of my mouth, was dirty. It just felt, look, we got there and we were told that they'd already settled on the warning parental advisory sticker.
Okay.
So me and Frank were in the back area. John wasn't with us, Denver. But anyway, and we're like, wait a minute, we haven't even testified yet.
Frank Zappa.
This is why we're here, and the war's over. Why are we even wasting our time on this? So
just
we
to
went
put
in
on
there
a show.
knowing we had already lost the battle, and that the RIAA, the Recording Institute, had agreed to the warning parental advisory sticker.
And when you say they were working for their own personal agendas rather than what was the Senate hearing was about, or because of what the Senate hearing was about, are you saying that they were trying to take a stand and show, well, look at these obscene artists and look at what we're doing for the public? Is that what you mean, that they were kind of trying to put on a show that they could further their own political career?
They were right, exactly. They were concerned with the people who were backing their careers, give donating money for their candidacies or running for office. My dad's 95 years old, still with us, and he was actually there that day.
Really?
He was there. I thought he would like to see Washington up close and personal, but he said, I said, so Dad, what's your takeaway? 95 years of politics. He goes, they'll say anything they can to get in office, and then they'll say anything they can to stay in office.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's
true.
all they care about, is getting in and staying there. And whoever they got asked, they got to kiss.
Yep.
They will do that. And it's not a good look to say, hey, you know what? That dirtbag Dee Snider made a lot of sense. Hey, you know what? He's right. We were wrong. No, that wasn't a good look for them.
I've long said that it takes a certain type of asshole to run for office. I may be an asshole, but I'm not that kind of asshole.
That's the problem, you know, and I'm not, and I get asked about that a lot. If you consider, because I see him, someone called me the VOA, the VOR, voice of reason.
Yeah.
I'm really a moderate, I'm a gun-toting feminist, moderate, and I really sort of look at the situation and I can say, you know what? I agree with the left on this one. I agree with the right on this one.
Absolutely.
I live with the libertarians on this one. It is a Chinese menu. Pick what you want out of it. Anybody who votes walks into a booth and goes, all right, all Republican.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or all Democrat. No, they're not always right.
Dee Snider, the common sense candidates.
Yeah.
I could not agree more, though. There are things, there are Republican values I agree with. There's liberal values I agree with, and I think most people are in the middle. It's weird. I was going to bring this up, and I'm realizing this is another example.
And most of us are, and that's a statement.
Yes,
most people
are
just in that middle, trying to figure it out.
Yeah, agreed.
The loudest voice in the room are the minorities on either side.
Yep,
they are screaming their heads off, and they're controlling the conversation.
Yep.
And most of us in the middle are just saying, "All right, yeah, that makes sense to me. How do we find the middle ground here? Right. And that's the majority." But we are the silent majority. That is the true silent majority.
Again, I didn't realize this also falls under the category of integrity. Dee did something that was so ballsy. I got involved in this because I had a personal connection to it. that a friend of mine died in the station fire club, fire
Nightclub
show,
fire.
Nightclub fire, at the Great White concert. A buddy of mine, Jeff Rader, was doing sound for that show, and I didn't find out about this until 2 or 3 weeks after the event. Jeff had just started dating a nice girl. We were all so happy for him. And Jeff Rader, when that fire started, it was the only person on that video footage who was facing the back and telling everyone, get out of here, get out of here. And Jeff saved over 100 lives that night. And then when he got outside the building, he realized, oh, shit, my girlfriend's inside. And Jeff Rader ran into a burning building and died with his girlfriend inside the burning building. So they started doing these events to raise money for the victims. And initially, the first couple of events were just to raise money for medical costs. And I got involved in every event. And Dee was involved in every event. And when they put on an arena concert, Dee Snider put his neck on the line by publicly calling out Steven Tyler, Joe Perry, John Bon Jovi. Where are you?
Bruce Springsteen.
Where are you? These are your people.
Right.
These are your fans. These are the people who come out to your shows. Why are we having an easier time getting country artists, large arena-sized country artists, to help pitch in and donate their time to perform on this, and we can't get Joe Perry, Steven Tyler, you live up the road from here. Where are you?
Springsteen was rehearsing in Hartford for his tour. And I reached out to him and said, listen, we're doing this arena show, trying to raise money and attention for the victims of station nightclub fire. And I said, Bruce doesn't do festival style concerts. I said, tell Bruce he can do the show and we'll all sit in the audience and cheer. Okay. I said, this is important. And he was miles away rehearsing with his band and wouldn't do it. Bon Jovi wouldn't do it. Tyler passed. Tyler and the boys, that's their backyard that club was in. And I was doing such outreach on this thing, trying to get it happen because we needed something significant. Troy Lucchetta, the drummer of Tesla for years, such a kind, generous, he's not with me anymore, person. And I had been trying to put some things together big. And Troy calls me up and says, look, we want to do a concert. I said, Troy, we can't do enough. And he says, what do you mean? I said, it's $75,000 a day for the intensive care unit per person. I said, how much? I said, people are doing pancake breakfasts and car wash, and it's beautiful. And they're trying. And there's so many. There was over 60 kids who lost parents. One or both parents became orphaned that night. 100 died. There was so many victims. It was such a mess. I said, we can't do anything that's going to be significant enough because I was trying to put something big together. And Troy, I remember it. D, don't get choked up. He said, D, somebody's got to do something. And I realized here this guy's trying to get me to join with him. And I'm discouraging him. I'm telling him, and I said, I'm sorry, man. I'm there. And I called up VH1 and I got them to do a VH1 special. We got the arena, the Rhode Island, whatever, the Providence Civic Center. We got them. And we're trying then I'm reaching out to people and they're passing. We've got, by the way, Tom Schultz from Boston. Who's from Boston?
Yeah.
He paid 10 grand, donated 10 grand and played. Okay. The only person like that, of that stature who came in there. But anyway, I tried getting all these people. And then I was doing a country reality show and I mentioned it to John Rich and him, Gretchen Wilson, Dierks Bentley. They flew down in their own plane and participated to try to help out. So we did a thing. We made a couple $100,000, whatever, a few $100,000. And everybody, it was great, blah, blah, blah. I'm going $75,000 a day. Yeah. These people lost their homes. They lost their jobs. They lost their parents. It's nothing. And I was so frustrated. I couldn't do more. Cut to this. I don't know if this story is well known. A year later, whatever, I get a call from the station nightclub fire fund. And they said, D, we're shutting down. Ooh. I said, they had been nursing things along with these pancake breakfasts and things like. I said, why? He says, because that concert shamed the lawyers, the insurance companies, the judges to take action. We got $750 million in payouts.
Oh my God.
Everybody says they're not right, but but everybody is going to get their insurance claims.
Mhm.
They're going to get money. Everybody's going to be taken care of, and we closed the fund. So here I was like, I didn't realize, it was the effect of just doing it and waving it in everybody's faces that these people are struggling and suffering, and they need our help. Our brothers and sisters. I played that club. I played that Station Nightclub.
Yep.
It's no one should deserve to die because they went to see one of their favorite bands on a Tuesday night with their wife or their girlfriend. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be a death sentence to walk into a place like that. But anyway, yeah, everything got paid out. Everything got settled, and all the people got their insurance money and all those benefits that they were supposed to get.
What
So
a beautiful story.
God bless
Much
them.
like the drummer from Tesla kind of giving you a little bit of a nudge to do that. I'm telling you, listening to you right now, I would vote for you. 100%. We need you. America needs Dee Snider.
A rare man
It's amazing.
A rare man of integrity.
Mhm.
Which, by the way,
And who gets things done.
yeah,
So integrity and does the work to get things done.
Yeah.
We have neither of those
yeah.
representing us right now.
My daughter, you may know this or not know, my daughter Shy was on a retreat in the jungles of Peru when they shut the world down for COVID,
I remember this being,
and she was stuck.
Ooh.
Dude, I don't think I took a full, maybe that may have been the start of my hypertension. I think I slept or took a full breath the entire 2 or 3 weeks we were trying to get her out, but I was raising holy hell. And I remember some politician, some ambassador, some mucky muck said, Dee, if I'm ever stuck somewhere, I want you getting me out because my phone is blowing up. Everybody, they were talking about it in the White House.
wow.
Dee Snider's daughter's in Peru. We got to get her out of there. He's freaking out. But I don't stop until I get it done. That's for sure.
He-
Love that. Admirable.
Again, I love how much he loves his family and loves his wife, that when he became one of the most famous faces in the world for years, this is the woman who loved me. I'm sticking with her.
Yep.
And loves his kids. I love how much of a family man he is.
As Dee said in the song long ago, you can't stop rock and roll.
Right.
Clearly, you can't stop Dee Snider either.
Yeah,
I love that.
By the way, one of the greatest rock songs ever
Oh.
written. But with a man who doesn't do drugs, doesn't drink, and has had the integrity since he was 13 years old to learn that one lesson, I was really floored to find out, and this is one of the reasons why I reached out to you, because I thought, what the fuck is this about? You took mushrooms for the first time at the age of 70 years old.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Sorry. Woo! Well, when I said my daughter was on a retreat, she was on an ayahuasca
I was thinking
retreat
as soon as I heard Peru, I knew that's what that
in
was.
Peru. And my entire family are ayahuasqueros.
Mm.
My wife has done like 15 ayahuasca journeys herself.
Get out of here.
And she's been drug free and alcohol free her whole life. But my wife, it all started with my wife because she's suffered an insane amount of loss.
Mm.
Family members, suicide, murder,
Yep.
cancer, friend. I mean, it's the amount of loss I've witnessed in her life and seen her carry herself and lift herself up, how many bedsides she sat by and held the hand of a dying friend or a family member. It's just, it blows my mind. So she wanted to understand, what's going on here? Why is this my journey? Why do I have to go through this time and time again? And then my kids are all grown. They all got into ayahuasca and medicine plants and all that stuff. And I've seen the results. I've seen how it's helped them through different things and cured things and miraculous things. And I've respected it, but I'm like, hey, you guys all want to find out the truth. I'm plugged into the Matrix, and my Matrix is awesome. I'm a rich rock star with a hot wife. I drive an Aston Martin. I don't want the truth. I don't want to know that I'm with Keanu Reeves in some spaceship eating gruel. I mean, I just keep me plugged the fuck in. So, but when I hit this wall, with at 70, and all these health issues started kicking in, and I look and I go, and really, what's going on? I wanted some greater answers, and my family's always been singing the praises of medicine plants, whatever. And I said, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready for more answers. I need to know more, and they were like, are you kidding? And I was like, no. I said, I'm in your hands. No, don't, I don't want to be strung out like a junkie. Mm-hmm. No, we had a shaman, and 5 hours. I did a 5-hour journey, and my family was in the room with me, and it was truly beautiful. And I learned a lot. And they were like, well, the next time, I'm like, one and done. I'm like, all right. It was intense. Mm-hmm. I did I get all the answers I want? Yeah, I got enough answers, and it changed my life for sure. But it was really, people heard that, but I shared that with people because, I think, the fact that I've never done anything before, I thought, and I was all very open and honest about the experience, I thought it might help some people who could be helped. Medicine plants are truly miraculous. They really are. And, and they could really help a lot of people.
Did you get the relief you were looking for, the health relief that you were looking for?
It wasn't health so much, but it helped me deal with because I'm wearing the sunglasses. Because one thing, I swore I had my tear ducts removed in the early 80s, and somehow the fuckers grew back. Uh-huh. I don't know what happened. But I did answers facing this, like, sort of this moment where I rock. That's what I do. That's what I've done. It's who I am. It defines me. Everything I do has a level of intensity to it that it is just by design. The music I listen to, the cars I drive, the way I live my life, everything is up here, on 10. And I'm being told, you got to calm down. You gotta mellow out. And through the journey that I was on, through the medicine, there's stages in our lives, you know what I mean? And we're for men, they're different than women, but we're children, and then we become warriors at some point. We grow to become warriors. And then when we finally get to the end, we become the wizard. We become wise, and now we are the sage advice to others. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I was stuck in warrior mode. That's what I learned. Mm-hmm. Stuck in warrior mode, and I couldn't get out. And I said, anytime I walk into any building, I was expecting a fight. No people like me. I have no reason to, but that's just how I felt morning, noon, and night. I always was ready for a fight. And I don't know why. I've won.
Did you conclude what it was that you were afraid of that made you always want to be that on guard?
That I didn't, but it not so much that as much as I've just been fighting so hard for so long. I'm sort of stuck in that mode, and I can't. The idea that I don't have to fight, I don't have to fight, and the message came to me, says, you're out there on the battlefield alone, fighting, and the war's over. Come inside with your family. The war's over. And I've just been in warrior mode, and for many, many years, it was that for me. Twisted Sister took 10 years to break, and everything I did was, and then it all fell apart in the 90s, and I was like broke and 3 kids and, riding a bicycle to a desk job, answering phones for a couple $100 a week, trying to figure out, what am I going to do now? This is the 90s, and I'm just struggling. So it's always been a lot of fighting, a lot of struggling, but I'm cool. I don't have to anymore. And that was sort of the big thing, come on in. The war's over. So I've had to trying to change into the wizard mode and being the wise one and being, and helping others. And I've always done that anyway, but still that, I don't have to be the one fighting all the time.
This conversation fascinates me because when I was going through my active addiction, part of that was I felt like Chris Cale had eaten up Chris. And with you having that big personality, the Dee Snider character on stage, did you feel like Dee Snider had taken over Dee?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It becomes who you are, and it defines who you are. And that's why with all this stuff, like you can't perform anymore. And you can't, I can't, dude, this is good. This is, okay. One of the first things they did when they got my diagnosis, I got what they call a wearable, and it sort of lets you know when your heart rate's accelerating.
Yep. I've got one on right now.
Stunned, you do. Yeah. I was stunned to find out it was like, well, everything. When I listened to my music, the metal, it was, when I'm getting my sports cars and my hot rods, my foot, because my foot is always leaning on the gas. I'm always trying to get in front of that other car. Always, always, always. So everything that I just do day to day was triggering me. And I literally had to cruise control. Cruise control.
Yeah.
Okay. But I gotta stop listening to metal all the time. It's the only metal music I like is metal. And and it could be because it fires me up, but calm down.
We've even got a segment on this show that it's like talking to myself right now. I'm always driving fast. We have a segment on the show called Chris is Pissed.
Yeah.
Where I just rant.
And he's got something for almost every episode to be
every
pissed
time.
about.
Yeah. I can do 3 right now.
Just about me. Yeah. And it's funny because when Dee describes himself as always being, I always remember, I can do one impression of Dee, and it's me picking up the phone and hearing his voice. It would always be 3 syllables. And as a rock star, it was amazing to me how he had all the energy of a drill sergeant. He was so dialed in and had so much hyper focus. I always remember the fear I would feel when I would see my phone ringing and I'd go, hello? And I'd hear, gas is D. And my posture would straighten up. I'd go, hey, D, what's going on? What you need? Like
Dee's channeling his dad right there.
Absolutely. Do you think that is you are your dad on many levels?
Well, that was a big realization.
Oh, yeah.
That was a big realization. But also, I mean, so my dad was my muse. I hated him so much. But I come to realize in recent years, we've gotten a lot closer. And I come to, and through the mushrooms and whatever, that
what an
the love, that the reason why I hate him so much is because he loved me so much.
Yes.
And all the love I felt as a kid, my mom was Eastern German, very Swiss, very clean, church lady. My dad was a passionate guy, so he's the guy having a catch and having fun, telling you jokes and having fun with you. But he was also the disciplinarian, heavy-handed as fuck. And so he created this thing in me, this split, and I came to hate him because he was the guy I loved more than anybody in the world, and he was crushing my soul. And but I realized that I was doing that to my own eldest son, and I'm not with the physical that way, but you can do it emotionally, as well. And just as my dad was my hero, I was my son's hero. And by being, my son grew up watching me on MTV. I wasn't even around.
Wow!
I missed 9 months of the first year he was alive. Wow! So he had this hero worship of me, but it was not. I remember he asked me for an autograph picture. And I signed to Jesse, love Dad. And I could see the disappointment in his face that I didn't sign it Dee Snider. Oh, wow. I could see it, that I wrote Dad on it. And so me being his father and his hero really messed him up. And I got the message, straighten that out. And I've been, we've reconnected and putting that back together. So, but I realized that, history repeats itself. But and I was a lot of my dad, that intense military guy. And my dad was in Korea. He was in the 2nd Infantry. And I kept getting in my visions this flash of the infantry patch. It was this it's a black patch shield with a red Indian, white star and a red Indian chief on it. And their motto is second to none. And that was around the house all the time. Second to none, second to none, second to none. And I realized that was been pounded in my head to be second to none, to be that, to work that hard and always try to be the best.
Be undeniable.
In everything you do. And, and that stuff just imprints itself on your brain, So, yeah, so it was helpful. It was helpful.
That second to none, it reminds me of a story that Dee said very casually to me about one of my favorite songs of all time. In fact, it was a song that I would listen to driving into the Howard Stern show every morning when I was auditioning to be a sidekick, because it just was the right theme to hear every day before I would come into the studio to do my audition. He said that, and I remember this very well. I feel like when I say this, you're going to go, yes, that's exactly how that happened. I remember Dee saying to me that he was talking to a band member's sister. They were in London. Dee had a baby, maybe a second one already, and he didn't like being away from the family. And he's talking to a sister of one of his bandmates and essentially venting about, I want to be with my family, but I know that this next record, which would be the record, Stay Hungry, that would break everything. Dee didn't like being away from his family. And the sister said, well, that's the price you got to pay, Dee. And Dee walked into the bathroom. Yep. If I remember correctly, you said you wrote it on a toilet bowl, like on a toilet bowl.
Yeah.
I remember you wrote it on toilet.
I wasn't taking a shit or anything. It was Jimmy Page's studio, but it was the only place where I could get bathrooms. The only place I could get privacy. There's a band was all over, and I went in with my little recorder and my pad and paper, and I wrote the price. And it was JJ's sister-in-law. She had called up, but at that point I'd been away from my son and my wife for like 4 or 5 months,
right.
And we didn't have money to fly them over or even phone calls. We couldn't even afford phone calls, and this is talking about the 80s, it was different.
Yeah.
Now you got the, you could do WhatsApp.
Right.
WhatsApp. Yeah. You could do that. But yeah, that was true. I wrote the price.
And looking back now, was it worth carrying on?
Yeah.
There we go.
But one of the things in my journey was I would never want to have regret. And in the journey, I realized that I use the word stepped on. I don't mean it like in the most traditional sense, but just in my mission to get there, wasn't paying attention, like my son. To this is for the greater good. This is for what this is going to bring us happiness and money and a home, and this is paying the bills. And my wife, she was with me through it all. I never asked her if she was cool with me going on the road, with me leaving the country for 4 or 5 months. And she had a baby. She's 22 years old, and we have a studio apartment, and we had a baby, and we got no money. And I never asked her. I just assumed, oh, she's cool with it. She's cool with it. And she, she's the one who did the costumes, the makeup, the hair. She immediately saw I was on a mission and got in the trenches, and she designed the Bone logo. I mean, she just supported her man in every way she could. But I never asked her if she wanted to do that. And she apparently had a whole different plan for herself. I've recently found out a whole other plan, and that she just, I just plowed over.
I do,
and it wasn't just her; it was family members and friends and everything. I was on a mission.
Again, going back to integrity, I do remember you reciprocating. I remember you telling me in the studio one morning that when Twisted Sister, when the fame ended, that you had your obligations financially were so ahead of where you were at that you guys had to downsize so quickly, and you couldn't make money. So Suzette started her. She's a hairdresser, and Dee, who was incredibly famous but didn't have money, would go to a local mall with a sweatshirt that he'd pull the hoodie up so you couldn't see his face, and he'd put flyers famous Dee Snider would be in the mall. Do I remember that correctly? That you would put out
Yeah,
flyers?
no, it was tough. Adam was reciprocating. It was that I had 3 kids.
Yeah.
And no money,
Yeah.
and the bottom fell out of everything.
And you were famous.
And yeah. Oh no, when I was answering those phones in that office, people would walk in and go, "Aren't you Dee Snider?" This is like 91, and I'm going, "No, I just look like him." And they would fall for it because what would Dee Snider be doing in this office answering a phone at the desk? And they would go, and I go, no. I said, crazy, right? And they go, yeah. Oh my God, it's uncanny.
He's like, I get that all the time.
Yeah. So yeah, it got pretty dark. But then again, but that was more Suzette.
Mm-hmm.
We had no money. And Suzette goes, well, I can do makeup for weddings, and I'll go do that on weekends, and I can get a job as an assistant in a beauty parlor. So she just went back to work, and that wasn't her dream, to be an assistant, washing people's hair in a beauty parlor and going to Bridezilla's house on the weekend and doing makeup for a bridal party,
purposely making him look like Dee Snider. Like, this girl's got an attitude. Here you go. Yeah, I'm not going to take it now.
But yeah. So the realization, it was worth it. But yeah, I definitely stomped on a lot in my band. I was so manic. I mean, JJ said he's never met a more intense person than me, and I just made them miserable.
Yeah,
with just how demanding I was. I mean, we would record every show, and afterwards I'd listen to it, and then I'd call them in and start. We're playing arenas, and you did this, you did that, you did this, like
drill sergeant,
barking at them.
Mm-hmm.
I used to make them empty for sound check. This is nothing. I used to make them empty the arena because nobody could hear me sound check.
Wow.
So they would have to get everybody, all the security, everybody would have to go out into the hallways.
You can see that in the video of The Price. It's an empty arena. He's standing on stage. That's funny.
They couldn't watch me. Why? I have no idea why they couldn't watch me. Because I'm Dee, damn it, and I'm out of my fucking mind.
There's the title right there. Yeah. I'm Dee, damn it, and I'm out of my fucking mind. Write it down, Alex.
One of the best storytellers I've ever met, and one nugget of a story. I remember you telling me before you let you go, and I can't remember the details of it. I just remember the way the story goes is that Dee and his management ended up hiring security. Not to protect Dee, but to protect the audience from Dee beating the shit out of the audience every night.
Look at those hands.
That was the last time I jumped into the crowd. Worcester, Massachusetts, opening for Dio. Stay Hungry's breaking wide. Somebody throws a bottle at me. I climb over 8 rows of seats. I'm out there and they're slugging it out. Next morning, phone rings early in the morning. It's my manager, my lawyer, my accountant, and my agent. And they're all screaming at me, what the fuck are you doing? I'm like, what? They said, you beat some kid up last night. I said, he threw a bottle at me. He said, you can't do that anymore. I said, why? He says, you have money. I was like, what? He said, you have money. They're going to sue your ass. Remember Sebastian Bach, everybody?
The same state, in the same state in Springfield.
Oh yeah, that's a fucking anyway. But don't get me started. Worcester. Anyway, so I said, "Well, what am I supposed to do?" They said, "Well, we're going to get you a bodyguard." I said, "Is that to protect them from me?
Yeah.
Are you going to give me a bodyguard so that I don't beat them up?"
Yeah.
So sure enough, I got this gigantic black bodyguard. He was Bowie's bodyguard. He was Freddie Mercury's. He was Mick Jagger's, and now he's my guy. And we're walking around. So we're in Australia. I'm doing a promotional thing. We leave the event. We're driving away in the limousine. And a car pulls up with some kids in it. And they go, Twisted Sister sucks. Dee Snider at a light. Idiots. Lee Snider sucks. And Vic, his name was Vic, opens the door, gets out, opens the door, pulls the guy out of the car. Boom, 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 boom. Drops him in the street, gets back in the limo, and we drive off. We're driving. He goes, how was that, boss? It was kind of like watching somebody else fuck your old lady. It looks good, but it doesn't feel the same.
Yeah. No, with all this chaos that you talk about being a front man and whatnot,
Oh, by the way, can I curse on this show?
Of
Oh,
course,
absolutely.
Of course.
Ivan,
You can fuck your wife on this show.
Ivan has told me a joke that you told him in regards to a tour manager at the hotel looking for his lead singer. Do you know that joke? And can you tell us that here now?
All I know is he told it to me, and I had to say, that's not exactly how it goes.
Yes.
And he said, what? I've been telling it the wrong way all this time. So what is the joke? What is the story you told me?
It's the one where the tour manager goes into the front desk at the hotel and is like, hey, I've been knocking on my lead singer's door and I'm not getting an answer. He needs to come for sound check. Can you please let me into his room? And the front desk host is like, I'm sorry, sir, but your lead singer passed away last night. Tour manager kind of hangs his head and is like, okay. He goes outside, comes back in 5 minutes later, tells the front desk, hey, I'm trying to get into my lead singer's room. He needs to be at sound check and he's not answering. Can you go check? Sir, I just told you your lead singer passed away. He walks out again, broken heart, comes back in 5 minutes later, says, miss, I'm trying to knock. And she goes, I just told you that, sir, 3 times. He goes, I know. I just wanted to hear it again.
No, I didn't tell him that joke. I did not tell him that joke, but I will take credit for it. I will take credit for it. All right, let's wrap this up.
Yes.
Full circle, back to the beginning. Lemmy. All right. I'm gonna tell you. Okay, you talk about that voice. I didn't speak Lemmy back then. Well, eventually I did speak Lemmy, and I spoke Brian Johnson, and I spoke Ozzy Osbourne. But most people can't. So when I was doing radio in Philadelphia, anytime Lemmy, Brian, or Ozzy would call in for an interview, after the interview, I would play, guess what Lemmy just said? And I would get a clip of something and I would play it, or Brian Johnson or Ozzy, and that guttural, and then I would take phone calls. And was it about the tour? No, sorry, it wasn't about the tour. Thanks for calling. 95.5. Yeah, anyway, and you would win a T-shirt if you could guess what Lemmy said. So Lemmy had a tough accent.
I love that.
Let me tell you something beautiful.
Please.
About Lemmy, because I see that Motörhead shirt, Chris, and I love Motörhead, and I've only a few times in my life I got choked up. Leslie West, passing, Chris. Craig, I'm sorry, Chris. Craig, Leslie West passing. That was huge.
Yep.
Matter of fact, bizarrely, we're over a tangent, but we could talk forever. I haven't spoken to Howard in forever.
Yep.
Forever. And
they used to be very close, very tight because of similar background.
We were very close, but when he divorced Allison, it got weird. Suzette was very close with Allison. And anybody who's been involved with divorced couples, it becomes who gets
the friendship.
You're like, who are you with?
Yeah.
And Suzette felt very disloyal to Allison because they were both just regular girls. You know what I mean? And they were the husbands were the celebrities. And then we went out one night with his new wife. I forgot her name, and she was lovely. But we left, and Suzette said, I just felt really uncomfortable. Anyway, and Howard just went his way, and I went my way. But I hadn't spoken to him in decades. Phone rings the day Leslie West dies. It's Howard. D. Leslie. And he just knew, like, we were so close with Leslie, and we talked. That was when we talked for maybe a half hour about memories with Leslie and what a great friend he was and whatever. And then he was like, so how you doing? Good. How are the kids? Great. Okay. Hey, we should talk more. Yeah. Okay. And that was it. I never heard from him again, but that was weird. But Leslie West, and when Lemmy passed, that was heartbreaking. That was heartbreaking to lose Leslie and Lemmy. So we're at the memorial, and I don't know if you heard about the memorial
for Leslie. Oh no,
for Lemmy.
For Lemmy, I knew about the memorial. I actually went to his 70th birthday party, and I always reference that as the only time I'll ever go to a 70th birthday party where I saw crystal meth, but at the whiskey.
And at the memorial service, everybody was there. I mean, Kiss was there, Guns was there, Foo Fighters was there, Ozzy was there. It was just a who's who. Triple H was there. I mean, the man was beloved. And there was also, but like normal, regular people there. And people got up and spoke. and Slash got up and spoke, and Triple H got up and spoke, and his shoemaker, the guy who made those white boots for Lemmy.
The boots, yeah.
Pascal, he got up and spoke. And then his family got up there. They follow Motörhead all over the world. And once Lemmy got wind that they were following, they were like carte blanche. Anytime they showed up, they were taken care of. Mm-hmm. So we're listening to all these people talk. Great stories. And Suzette leans over to me and she goes, I think he was an angel. And I looked at her. I said, well, what are you talking about? She goes, well, spiritual people say that God sends down angels to walk amongst us, to help us on our journey. There are people who believe that. She goes, and you listen to these stories about Lemmy, and he helped all these people. He was there for each and every one of them at a certain time in their lives when they needed Lemmy to be there. And I know for Twisted Sister, we were, I mean, he literally was the saving grace, bringing us on that stage, introducing us, then showing up. He would get a line at clubs and wait, and not a line, but walk in the front door and just come in and introduce the band and champion us, and he was just, we needed someone like Lemmy to help us get over the hump. And he got us there. I mean, even when we got signed to Atlantic Records and what have you. But I said, so you're telling me that God sent a drug-taking, hard-drinking, pirate biker down to Earth to guide us on our journey? She said, would you listen to someone in long flowing robes?
Wow.
And I thought, and I was just like, and the more I thought about it, I mean, not that I'm not that guy, but sure as hell, if he wasn't there for us when we need to be there, and we always stayed friends, but when we lost our first indie record deal, we're trying to get another record deal, Lemmy was every moment right there, just helping us along until we got up and running, and then we saw him, but not like I saw him back then. But anyway,
legendary stories, and you can look this up. The moment when the crowd in I don't know if it was in England, that was just brutal, and Lemmy walked out on stage to say, "Hey, these guys are my friends. I love them. How about you give them a chance?" And the crowd went, "All right." And they, I wanted to.
He didn't even know Chris. He didn't even know us.
Oh, you're kidding! I didn't know that part of it.
He didn't know us. Pete Way from UFO was producing Under the Blade, our first indie record, and he knew we were doing this show. We had never performed in England before. It was a football stadium show. We wound up going on special guests at a festival show with no album out, and this is 82 or 81. We're wearing full faces of makeup. Nobody's out there wearing makeup. Kids is taking their shit off.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we're wearing makeup. Makeup bands are getting bottles off the stage in England. And we went on in broad daylight for the first time in our careers. And Lemmy offered to introduce the band because I said he knew the smell of human excrement when he walked past our dressing room. We were shitting in our pants. And he just did what Craig said. I saw, I mean, an ugly crowd, Motörhead crowd in early 80s. You'd rather fuck the guys than the chicks, okay? I mean, it's a brutal group of people. And I can see the bottles go as we walk out on stage in all the makeup and costumes, and Lemmy comes out, the headliner. And he says that, some friends of mine from the States, give him a listen. Wow. Gave us that much window. And I took it, and we took it, and of that ovation after that set, 10 minutes afterwards, we were in it was a locker room, and our road manager comes in and goes, "Shut up and listen." And we shut up, and you hear the stadium going, "Twisted,
nice,
sister." This was 10 minutes after we left the stage. Band had no albums out, no success, but we got that little chance from Lemmy, our angel. And then Lemmy comes back and says, "I introduced you. Now you bring my band on."
Oh man!
And I'm like, I go out, I walk out on stage, the place goes nuts. I bring Motörhead on stage at a football stadium. This is the height of their popularity in the early 80s in Europe. And I just go to the side of the stage and just, banging my head up with everybody else. And then he goes, "This one's for him. This is America."
Yeah.
And I was like, but man, yeah.
The angel Lemmy hath spoken.
Yeah.
Angel Lemmy.
That
was all we needed.
That was a great example of an angelic moment of a helping hand from somebody.
Absolutely.
Dee, where do you want people to, I know you're working on movies now. That's part of your deal. Where do you want people to find your stuff at?
Don't bother. No,
Okay.
I mean, I'm DeeSnider.com, and I've been laying kind of low since the announcement because it's a mixed thing. It's the questions and answering them over and over and over, but also the love was really nice. I mean, I didn't expect hate, but man, it was an international story, and the takeaway was people were very positive. They were like, "Hey, man, you got to make the right decision here. You got to make the choice for you and your family, and we'll miss you, but and you gave us a lot of great shows, and we love you." And it was just incredible, just hearing that, and it really makes me feel terrible. Actually, makes me feel guilty. Makes me feel, I let people down. I may disappoint people. I never want to be that guy. I always want to be that guy who who didn't disappoint people.
Well, all that rock and roll for all those years have given you the platform to speak as you have today about being aware of both physical health, mental health. So all that time in rock and roll surely going to reach some people on a personal level as well.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, you have been the epitome of health, no drinking, no drugs, staying healthy the whole time. And
first thing I bought, Chris, was a gym. After the house and the car, I bought a gym.
Exactly. Yeah. So stay aware out there of how your body feels. Get past that ego. Don't think that you are a superhero.
Immortal.
We want to be superheroes. We are not. Being a superhero is paying attention to that stuff, using that ADD to hyper focus on what you've actually got going on and paying attention to that. And I appreciate you sharing your story here.
You know what? And that just reminds me of a question I did want to ask you. How did you manage to survive your ego when so many guys from that genre didn't? You pivoted and you continued moving. You found other avenues to expand your brand, but your
Suzette
ego
took me out at the knees. Suzette took me out at the knees. Two things, it was a little bit of I was out of control by the mid 80s. Once we broke, I mean, I looked up the word megalomaniac and it was a picture of me. Okay. Right there in the, and it was, and nobody said no to Dee Snider, but Suzette was never a yes girl, ever. She's my biggest fan, but she's also my biggest critic and the most honest. And she was still who she was. And when she would not bow down before the all powerful Dee Snider, we got separated. I was not putting up with any shit from anybody. And, but fortunately we went to marriage counseling and we worked through it. And then, so having a person in my life who would tell me I was wrong when I didn't want to hear it. And then also, when you lose everything, nothing like a good humbling to make you a better man or woman. And when I lost everything and I was riding a bicycle to that desk job and flying those cars, running from mall security in the rain, not because I was going to go to mall jail for flying a car. I didn't want him to go, Dee Snider, what are you doing out here putting flyers on cars for? For your wife's business for $100? I mean, it was really, so that humbling really made me, took it down a notch. And I'm still an egomaniac. I'm still a narcissist, but I'm domesticated and I've learned how to control it. And I'm grateful, to that, to have the life that I've had and to come back from dead. Literally, I lost everything and I came back from that.
There's so many more stories we could get into. I'm grateful for our friendship. And I wanted to tell you before I let you go that one of the highlights of my career personally was being asked to do the roast of you, because I was excited to participate and be with some, Zach Wilde and Scott Ian and some of my comedian friends like Florentine and Don Jameson. but I wanted to do it because of the last thing I said at the end of the roast. I had problems with drugs in my life, with alcoholism. I wasn't the best in personal friendships or in relationships. And there are people who just, I look at as examples and I just think, I want to be more like that person. And Dee is that person who has integrity. And I just admired him so much. And I couldn't believe he was being so nice to me. And that he was genuinely supportive of who I was and what I was doing creatively, that I just wanted to be able to have that moment in the roast so that at the end of shitting on you, which I did in a very roundabout way, I was able to stop and say, I love you and I want to tell you how much you mean to me. And I do. There are people who just are quiet examples to me that I think, you know what, I want to be more like that person. You've had an incredible impact on me being a better person just by leading by example. And I wanted to thank you for that. And
you know what? I'm glad, Craig, but you were the worst at roasting me. Because he loves me and he said it. He said, I can't, he's made some offhanded comments or whatever, and then he goes, I can't do that. Yeah. He goes, it was really beautiful.
I shit on a lot of people, and there's actually a couple people that I roasted that I'm like, oh man, I'm kind of bummed out that it's on YouTube, because there's some people that I went, ooh, I went a little hard, but I couldn't.
But he wouldn't do it, and even though I can laugh at myself for sure. But anyway, but hey, man, feelings mutual. We've developed a great friendship over the years, and and you were a nice guy. I don't know. You were great.
Yeah.
You were great to have on the show. You were great to just hang out with. We spent a lot of time laughing, and we still do.
Yeah.
And I still, every time I see you or hear from you, I'm happy about it. So I was glad to do this. By the way, the first media I've done since announcing my retirement. So you have the exclusive.
Well, thank you for that. And my goal now is to get Chris and I, because Chris has been doing comedy for 4 years, to do a show somewhere near your compound so that we could all spend time together. Because my God, having an afternoon or a meal with Dee, the stories.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
It's at Greensboro, Raleigh, Winston-Salem.
Okay.
These are the cities you want to check out.
Okay.
Charlotte's a little far away.
All right.
Well, Raleigh's pretty far away too, but I know there's some comedy clubs.
Yep.
Because one of my son's friend was a comedian. She was performing locally, and she stayed at the compound. So yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah, you come out, and it'll be great to see both of you guys. Really
wonderful.
And we don't even talk about Chris. Okay, fuck, we're gonna be here forever. Because Chris. So, Five Finger Death Punch opens for Twisted Sister in Florida.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
And as a matter of, so now, mind you, I have missed some of the greatest bands on earth because I was putting my makeup on. Metallica coming to the East Coast for the first time after leaving the Bay Area, with Cliff, with Mustaine, the original band, opened for Twisted Sister in a club. When we toured with them in the 80s, they said, dude, we opened for you. I'm like, really? Yeah, remember? I said, oh, I was putting my makeup on.
Yeah.
I remember everybody coming in and going in the band going, holy shit, this opening band is amazing. Five Finger. And I was like, really? Put my lipstick on. So I didn't see you guys, but I just, and my band just really sang Five Fingers praises, and really just, told anybody who would listen. And I'm not saying it was my band's reason you got signed, but that was before you got signed, and you guys, that was the first time I didn't even meet you. No, I did. I met you after the show. I met the whole band. And then I saw you guys at the Metal Hammer Awards on the black carpet. I think I was hosting.
Yeah, that's when I first met you, because I wasn't part of the original lineup, but I met you at that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's when I met you the first time. Right. So yeah. So we go back, but I always miss the good bands because I'm putting makeup on. But anyway, I'm really glad to see what you're doing. And I heard that you're doing comedy, and you're dealing with a master over here. This kid.
Absolutely.
This I can call him a kid because he's so much younger than me.
Yeah.
But he's been a kid. But even going going to see him and watching the phases in your comedic career, the changing and the mutation and the growth, and you become quite a storyteller yourself. Craig, you're a storyteller now.
Oh yeah, I've become one now.
The back when I first time I saw you, was this is me doing Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, it was. It started out with somebody yelled out, "Do Casey Kasem doing Elvis?" And so I pulled the stool up and I said, "All right, here we go. Hi, I'm Casey Kasem and I'm doing Elvis." And I started fucking the stool, and then it became Sean Connery doing Elvis. Sure, you like it sloppy, don't you, Elvis? And then it was. Then it became like Yoda doing Elvis. Strong you are. And it was everybody doing it. Was, and now I've become a storyteller. It's not jokes, but the man of integrity, Mr. Dee Snider, just a wonderful human being. Looking forward to having you on again, and looking forward to the three of us hanging out, the four of us with Suzette, because I love Suzette as well. And I love your story, man. Thank you for joining us, Dee, and we're looking forward to next time, buddy.
Pleasure. Good luck with the podcast. I know it's doing well already, and I'm glad for you. And keep doing it. And, and just, hey, you know what? Remember, Chris, George Carlin said, you know what? You guys rock. Your band throws the fuck down.
Yeah.
And that's the way you're supposed to. Yeah. And when you get down the road down there, some shit's going to hurt.
Oh, yeah.
But you earned it.
We are definitely going to be dragging our crippled bodies across the finish line. Guaranteed.
Tom from Slayer said, because his neck is fused. And he says it broke his heart that he could no longer just thrash with the crowd the way he used to, because his neck was just gone,
I have seen those examples. Tom Araya, he's got the neck surgery. Jason Newsted from Metallica had the neck surgery. You think I learned? Nope. Beard banging the whole time. Heavy back and forth the entire time.
We earn our scars, my friend. We earn our scars.
Absolutely.
Pleasure talking to you guys. And Craig, you know where I am.
Yeah. And I'm just
Same number, 30 years.
Yep.
Ain't changing it.
I'm just going to throw in one quick thing that I remembered that I wanted to avoid. Maybe we'll just put this on the Patreon, which is I got in trouble at Dee's show in Hartford, and we found out about it later when a promoter called in to say, I wanted Kiss to do your show, but when they found out that it was your show, Dee Snider, they decided, no, we'll do anything except for Dee Snider's show, because Dee has a guy on the show that makes fun of Kiss. And Paul Stanley to this day has no idea that it's me.
Oh my.
He has no idea that it was me. Before I did a good Gene Simmons impression, I arguably did a much better Paul Stanley impression.
Wait a minute, dude. Chris, he comes in, nobody, and he goes, listen, I got this impersonation, but nobody knows what Paul Stanley's speaking voice is really. And I go, well, do it. And he does it. And it's just, even though you didn't know it, it's effing funny.
Oh, and I said, spot on.
Yeah.
I said, you got to do it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to do it on the show. So he started doing Gene and Paul on the show. This is before they were like a thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was, and then I remember we did a game show and they called in, both of them on the phone, and Gene kept hitting Paul.
Yes.
Yes. Stop hitting me.
That's right. Yeah, Gene was having a domestic with Paul. Yeah, it did. Woo! Thank you, Dee. We will see you soon, bud. Thank you.